Welcome to Earth Day Summit 2016, where leading visionaries, activists, and environmental leaders are activating a global community for sustainable living on our planet. Share this powerful event with your friends and family, and join in our conversation on Facebook at The Shift Network. Now your host, Nathan Crane, founder of the Panacea Community.
Hi, this is Nathan Crane, founder of the Panacea Community and executive director of Unify Fest. I'm very happy you're joining us for the Earth Day Summit. This event is dedicated to empowering each of us to live in wholeness and oneness with humanity and the planet, and we really appreciate you for joining us and for being a part of our community. And today I'm really excited to introduce two very wonderful speakers, Andrew Cameron Bailey and Connie Baxter Marlow. Connie was raised in Maine in a family of politicians and philanthropists who champion the earth, water, women, and animals, and Andrew became a science professor, and his journey took him on the Sufi path. Connie's path brought forth visionary Native American elders, and together they discovered that the indigenous connection to what Connie and Andrew have dubbed the conscious, loving universe is now being verified by cutting-edge quantum science, and that a synthesis of the two creates a paradigm of trust and personal power that brings more balance, beauty, joy, and abundance to our lives. Connie and Andrew, welcome to the summit. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Nathan. Thank you for including us.
Yeah, thanks. It's an honor.
Absolutely. So your work is also based on what I see you've written about called the trust frequency. Connie, can you please start and let us know, what is the trust frequency? What exactly is that?
Well, it's a higher state of being, a higher level of awareness where the laws are actually expanded and there's more balance, beauty, joy, and abundance than we can fathom, because our minds are conditioned, so to speak, from the prevailing paradigm to think in terms of scarcity, of competition, of all those sort of things that we take for granted as the only game in town. And what we've discovered through our 134 years or so on planet Earth, Andrew and I, through our various life walks and through the questions that we've asked to the universe, we've put together this understanding that there are different frequencies and that we have the personal ability through free will to determine our frequency. And we've written a book called The Trust Frequency, 10 Assumptions for a New Paradigm, where we bring tools for us to understand what our requests are to a conscious, loving, abundant universe. Andrew, do you have anything to add?
Well, I could go on and on. As I did most of the writing in the book itself, there's about 325 pages of discussion that we could embark on. I think maybe the most important thing that Connie just mentioned is the subtitle of our book. So the title is The Trust Frequency, and the subtitle is 10 Assumptions for a New Paradigm. So what's a paradigm? A paradigm is simply a set of assumptions. What's an assumption? It's something we take to be true without question. And here's our basic stance. Humanity is running on a set of assumptions that do not serve us. Do we ever examine those assumptions? No, we don't. They're generations deep. They've been in our families and in our bloodlines and in our ethnic communities for a very, very long time, and we simply take them for granted. And they may no longer be relevant, or they may no longer serve us. That's the work we do. We actually ask people to examine their core beliefs about the nature of reality. For example, I am a scientifically trained Western academic, if you will. I was raised to believe that the universe was a sort of a giant clockwork mechanism, which, while it contained consciousness, it clearly contained life and consciousness for that reason, it was not in and of itself conscious. And so it's something like a grand machine Now, what if that's not the case? What if that's a fundamental assumption that has been programmed into, at the very least, Western culture and the developed countries for a very long time? What if that's not true? What if, as opposed to a gigantic mechanism, what if the universe is actually conscious? What if it is composed entirely of something that we could call love? And by love with a capital L, I'm not talking about holding hands and I will bring you a bunch of red roses. I'm talking about more a quantum physics concept of something that actually underlies and underpins everything, that which both creates the universe and sustains the entire universe. So how's that for a start?
Yeah, thank you for that overview. You mentioned that love being kind of the intrinsic energy within all that is, and it's something that I've also come to believe and really begin knowing within myself and through my experience that as we think of love, sometimes we think of being happy and that sort of thing. And I think of happiness as more of an emotion, and I think of peacefulness and content and inner well-being more of a state of being. And for me, it feels like that love encompasses all of that. Love encompasses everything, and at the same time, like you said, holding hands and roses and being in that experience is an expression of love, but maybe not the underlying core, intrinsic frequency of pure love itself. To me, that feels more like peacefulness and intrinsic joy and the beauty and the grace of walking outside and just looking up at the stars and just feeling that expansive of peacefulness and joy and love within ourselves. Is that also what you're referring to?
Well, one thing, Nathan, what we've done is we say there is only love, okay? The things we see as not love, like war, like climate change, like famine, like abuse, okay, what we're saying is we don't understand the nature of unconditional love, okay? The nature of unconditional love is that it gives us everything we ask for, okay? So everything that happens in our lives, individually and collectively, happens as a result of our, what we call 7 A's, our consciousness, okay? We have the 7 A's of consciousness, which determine our frequency and thereby our reality, okay? So everything, absolutely everything from our point of view is love, okay? We just don't understand the nature of that love. And once we do, we understand what our requests are to this conscious, loving universe who is merely responding to our requests because we're so loved, okay? Once we get that and we understand what causes the reality that we're seeing and experiencing, we will change it because we are the creators of it.
So that's also what, something that's been kind of new for me that I'm really trying to understand at a deeper level of this concept of everything is love, because it also means that when somebody rapes somebody or kills somebody or steals from somebody, that's also love. But what I understand from that is that it's not expressing love. It's a form of love if everything's love, but it's not expressing love at its highest vibration. And for me, I mean, obviously that's contraindicatory, and it's hard to understand logically, and that's kind of where I am at in my path is feeling like, yes, everything is love, and also how do we come to that understanding that war and rape and killing and hatred and theft and murder and these sorts of things are also expressions of love?
Well, Nathan, I'll answer this and then I'll let Andrew chip in. But see, what we're saying is that for an individual, we don't know that individual's soul's journey, okay? We don't know if that person actually, who was murdered, actually incarnated on a journey where they gave permission to the loving universe to die by murder. You see, that somebody had to show up and murder that person because that soul's journey was to die by murder. Okay? That's what we are saying. Because if you take this construct that we're presenting with our definitions and our 10 assumptions, that's the only outcome you can arrive at. Okay? We're not saying it's true. We're saying if you take these principles that we're presenting, and if you take that there is only love, which you're accepting, and take it as absolutely true, then you have to rethink. See, we're stuck in this thing that says love is kindness and goodness and peacefulness and joy. You know, it's way more than that, because we came for a journey. We incarnated on this soul's journey, and we came for experiences that will allow us to move into wholeness, into alignment with our divine nature and integration with our divine nature. That's what we're presenting. We're proposing.
So let me chip in for a moment here. Nathan, this is one of the primary paradoxes that this worldview that we're presenting, it's one of the first paradoxes that is raised. You immediately say, wait a minute, it's not all love, obviously, there's all these horrible things. However, if you think of love, as I said earlier, with a capital L, as basically a primordial force within the universe, if it is that energy, a quantum science energy, if you thought of it from that standpoint, it's related to the gluon. The gluon is a subatomic energy that holds everything together. It's even related to the Higgs boson. It is that which brings everything into existence. Think of this universe coming into existence. If the Big Bang is in fact a true model for what happened, that was an exceedingly violent event. It has resulted in some very beautiful, peaceful things like beautiful planets and flowers and streams and children. But an awful lot of it was wild and could be experienced in many different ways. Many of these experiences are not necessarily pleasant. So that's one of the paradoxes. Okay? That makes sense?
Yeah. It does, and it also is. So what we're going to do then to embrace this shift in understanding of the word love is to open our willingness to accept that love is not only good feeling experiences, that it's the word that represents all that's ever been created.
That's right.
Absolutely. Okay, that's absolutely true from our perspective. Okay, if we take something as absolute, okay, and that could be dogma, that could be called dogma, okay? So everyone has to decide for themselves what they choose to have be absolutely true, and then put their life on it, okay? This is called the trust frequency, where you put your life on the line because you understand something to be absolutely true. And then when that happens, you shift your frequency, okay? You shift into another frequency where the laws are different, okay? Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, look at the lilies in the field, they toil not. Worry not about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear. Worry not, because it's an abundant universe. We have created a reality in a lower frequency than what Jesus was talking about, what John Lennon was talking about in Imagine, okay? we think that this is the only game in town. It is not. It is something we've created. We've accepted the laws and the rules, and we live by them, and we've created a mess, a solutionless dilemma. And I believe that climate change is in our face, universally devastating us, because it is time for the whole human race to come together and shift a level of consciousness into this higher reality. And crisis is what takes us there. And this crisis is so universal, it doesn't matter who it is, whether rich, powerful, poor, whoever, and wherever. It's affecting us all, so that we will choose out of free will to open our hearts to each other, to the earth, to the trees, to the animals, and everything, and open our heart and shift our frequency where we can't even fathom what's there. I mean, imagine. Can we imagine a world that John Lennon described to actually come into being? Well, yes. He put it out there for us, and so did Jesus, and so did Einstein, and a whole bunch of other mystical people who see a higher reality. Henry David Thoreau, who has, in his conclusion to Walden, has a key which I can quote to you. But he says, when one walks confidently in the direction of his dreams, he will pass a certain boundary, and he will experience a success unexpected in common hours. The laws will be expanded, and new laws will be made in his favor, and he will live with the license of a higher order of beings. Okay? So
Beautiful.
We want to throw that into the conversation.
Beautiful. I'm really glad that you brought up climate change in relationship to this particular conversation, because, when we speak with most, let's call them experts on socio-ecological systems and issues such as, the ecology and changing climate and melting polar ice caps and, disappearing animals in rainforests, etc. Usually folks are pointing at the action and calling it the cause. The cause of the rainforest being cut down is because logging industry, people want to build homes, and also because of grazing cattle, because people want to eat meat. And so we look at that, eating meat, and we look at that as building homes, etc., as the cause. But to me, that's the action. It's not the cause. That's not the root cause at all. The root cause is what we're talking about, right? It's about being disconnected from our deepest innate spiritual divine guidance. Because if we're totally connected, let's say as Jesus was, or Buddha, or Muhammad, or many great, human beings that develop themselves to a higher frequency and divine connection, if we're truly connected like that, and like many Indians, gurus today that live very, very simply, we would live much differently. We would not choose to buy toxic waste products. We would not choose to use plastic. We would not drive vehicles that use gasoline. We would not, live in houses that require all kinds of destruction of the planet. We would live a lot differently. So what I hear you're saying, and talking about this in relationship to climate change, is that if we first, increase our frequency by connecting deeper to that deepest loving spiritual nature within ourselves, then all of these results that we're experiencing of destruction of the planet will automatically change, because we'll be changing that within ourselves.
Yeah, on the side of our van, we're actually sitting in our Sprinter van in Aspen, Colorado, and we have magnetic signs on the side that say, change your assumptions and the world changes with you. So if we can get into our fundamental assumptions and by so doing raise ourselves to a higher vibratory rate, to a higher frequency, and operate from that place, our behavior changes. And this is, I believe, what you just said, Nathan. This is Earth Day. Earth Day is specifically about celebrating this gloriously beautiful planet that we live on and about addressing, shall we call them problems or challenges. We are capable as humans of many, many different ways of manifesting, and depending on what vibratory state we manifest from, our behavior is determined by the state of our consciousness at any one time. So once we awaken, our behavior changes. These problems, these environmental issues simply go away, which is why, we could certainly be accused of, hey, you guys are totally impractical. What are you talking about? Consciousness has got nothing to do with that. It's about stopping those people from doing whatever they're doing and cleaning up the rivers and the creeks. And I used to walk around Maui singing songs about clean up the rivers, clean up the creeks. I come from that background. But the only thing, it's fundamental, the only thing that is going to change things, and it's going to take crisis to compel us to make the change, is a shift in consciousness. And I'd like Connie actually to read something to our audience here today. And it is actually it's a paragraph from the introduction to the Trust Frequency book, which was written by a major environmental strategist who has worked for 3 United States presidents and is a dear friend and is very profoundly involved in this. And I think, Connie, do you agree? Would this be a good time to read something from Sally Ranney? Okay.
Yeah, her name is Sally Ranney, and she's a top policy strategist, environmental policy strategist, and has been for decades. And let me just read this from our foreword. Climate change has unambiguously put humanity on notice that we are on the cusp of great change, of making a critical choice about ourselves. A problem, as Einstein said, cannot be solved in the same consciousness in which it was created. In the case of climate change, one country, one community, or one technology cannot solve it. Only collaboration at the global level will solve climate change because it affects all human and natural systems. Nothing and no one will escape. This high level of collaboration can only take place if we let go of the tenet of the existing paradigm. To do so, we have to dig deep into the root cause of humanity's suffering and our unconscious, harmful actions against one another and Mother Earth. We are being called to explore and upgrade our current assumptions and belief systems, to understand ourselves and to awaken to the reality of the evolution of human consciousness, to find the high road to knowing our true nature and the true nature of the universe, to heal our planet and ourselves. This is what you were speaking of, Nathan, and that is connecting to our true nature and the true nature of the universe. Our divine nature, and opening our hearts, because the view from an open heart is completely different from the view of a closed heart that's afraid and enmeshed in the concept of scarcity. There's not enough, and I've got to compete with whoever out there so I can survive. This is antithetical to the true nature of the universe, our true nature, and what we came here to be and do and experience.
Who keeps coming to mind is Mahatma Gandhi as you're speaking. Before he became the, great Indian civil rights leader and helped free the nation from tyranny, he was an attorney. He wore a nice suit. He, lived in, the regular housing and all of the kind of general societal norms of somebody successful at that time. Then he went through a personal and spiritual transformation. And as he did that, I mean, look at his lifestyle choices. As he became more connected to spirit, meditated more, spent more time outside, more time, really wanting to know how to support and help the people in the greatest way without attachment, without expectations. He wasn't doing it for money. He wasn't interested in being a millionaire. He was really interested in his connection with God, with the Creator, and with helping the people. And then look at his lifestyle choices. All of a sudden, he stopped wearing suits and fancy clothes, and he started wearing, a single garment that often he made by himself. He would make his own robe. He would spin his own cotton. I mean, these are very sustainable, earth practical things that, support the sustainability of humanity and the planet. He wasn't shipping cotton in from, other parts of the world. They were growing it there, and then he was spinning it by hand. They weren't using machines that required oil and technology. Again, it was a hand, spinning wheel that was made very simply. And I mean, just those kinds of indications of a person who, transforms their life by connecting deeper with spirit and with love, really, the higher frequency of love, I guess we would say. I mean, look at the lifestyle changes that happen that automatically correlate to the sustainability of the planet. So it's a great example, as you're talking, that came to mind of how this consciousness shift in ourselves directly impacts the sustainability of the earth.
Well, let me say that from our understanding, the earth is actually moving into this higher frequency herself, okay? And it's up to us to move with her, okay? And this is a quantum leap into another frequency. What you're describing is Gandhi dealing with this frequency in a manner that suited him to do. And he became a model and an important force in shifting consciousness. But if you think practically speaking about us all going around in white robes that we've woven ourselves, that really isn't practical. And it doesn't mean that we can't reach his level of knowing and understanding and be living in another way of being as a humanity, as all the people on the planet. It's just, it has to be in another frequency where the laws are actually different, okay? It's just not an extrapolation from here to there. There's going to be a leap, and we don't know. We can't describe it, see it, or understand it. It's ineffable from this perspective. We just have to trust that is happening. We have to understand what our requests are, how the universe actually works, how we're influencing it, and go forward from there, allowing this amazing universe, conscious, loving, abundant universe to manifest beyond our wildest dreams. See, that's what we're bringing to the table. It's beyond intent. It's beyond what we can fathom. We've got to let go and let God. We've got to come to understand the mechanisms of the universe and then allow something to come forth out of love, out of abundance, out of something we can't imagine to go forward into.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side of that coin, I tend to think of, if we do want a clean planet for the future generations, I mean, we have to, like you said, there's a quantum leap that has to happen. There is a complete transformation in lifestyle choices that we have to make. And like me, with my family, we're making small choices daily, weekly, monthly to live more sustainably. And then I have a goal of where I want to be in the next couple of years. And we're not there yet, but I know where we're headed, And I think it's important for each of us to have some kind of vision as to where we want to be, but also realize the truth, the truth of where we are if we had 100% renewable energy sources, 100% solar power, free electricity power, or 100% water sources, hydrogen power, electricity, etc., we still would deplete the resources of the planet, and the planet would have to take care of itself. I mean, it's done it before. It has to protect itself from being, destroyed, and we know that it has that intelligence and capacity to do so. And, sustainability really means something that can continue indefinitely. So even if we want to choose to live the same way we are, which, I drive a vehicle that uses gasoline, and, I live in a house that uses electricity and things like that, so I'm definitely in that boat right now. But we're buying, some of the changes we've made is we're buying a lot more locally, everything. We're trying to buy more locally made clothing, food, seasonal, local, organic food. We started growing a lot of our own food. I started building buildings on our property out of the trees on the property. A lot of different things we're doing as we're heading more towards that sustainability perspective. But I think we're also caught in a paradigm, as you're talking about, these limiting paradigms. We're caught in a paradigm that we think that simply by changing technologies that we can continue to live the way that we do. And I've interviewed experts on this topic who are at the leading edge, who completely agree with the fact that it still will not be sustainable. Maybe it'll help us, live another 100 or 500 years, but eventually we keep going on this path, we're going to basically drain the planet of its resources. We still have to mine for minerals and metals. We still have to use technologies and machines to live this way. So, for me, what I hear you saying is we have to make a quantum leap consciously, and I'm totally on the same page. Consciously, spiritually, emotionally, we have to make that quantum leap to be more connected with Spirit, and then I feel that Spirit guides us to take the practical steps of how we choose to live our life. And I feel like we also have to make that quantum leap how we choose to live our life. Because if we are going to leave a clean planet for, let's say the next 7, 10, 12 generations, we have to change everything. and it might mean spinning our own clothing and growing it locally and wearing one or two things, not showering twice a day or even once a day. It might mean a lot of these changes, but I feel like even with a lot of those changes, we can live abundantly and joyfully and filled with love and gratitude and fulfillment, because right now we think material elements are fulfilling our lives, but we realize that they're not. It's fleeting happiness, and that true fulfillment comes from this deeper spiritual connection. So, yeah, I'm in alignment with what you're saying, and just wanted to share a little different perspective for people to think about.
Yeah, I would like to say that first, two things. One is that the trust frequency is exceedingly helpful in terms of living life, of actually trusting the process, of going through everything we go through, facing what we have to face day in and day out in our lives, whether individually or as a society or a community. The trust factor makes a huge difference in the way we actually experience the world. And to really, you can't fake it. You've got to really, really trust that even though it looks pretty tough and pretty dark, that this too is part of the process. This too shall pass, as they say. And that it is moving, and I'm a 60s guy, and I can see enormous progress since, shall we say, 1960 to 2020. That 60-year period, there has been enormous change and enormous progress. There really has. And the second thing I'd like to say is that we humans have the technology. We have the experience. We have the intelligence. We're unbelievably brilliant. Look at what we come up with. Look at what we do. What we are being required to do is to deploy our intelligence. We have the resources. We have what it takes. The thing that appears to be lacking is the will. And the reason for that is that we're operating on an outdated operating system of a set of assumptions, a paradigm that is simply outdated. It is fear-based, it is scarcity-based, it is anxiety-based, and it has resulted in a very few people on this planet, for just as one example, accumulating a large proportion of the resources. That doesn't work. That's not going to hold up over time. And why would anybody do that? Out of fear. We're talking about operating out of trust and not operating out of fear. And yet here we are in this world that is, the pendulum has swung a long way in a direction that a lot of us look at with alarm. We go, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. We have to trust that as well. The pendulum will swing back to a good place. We need to get to a place up at the fulcrum of the pendulum where it doesn't swing, where balance is just a given. Sustainability is just another word for me, as far as I'm concerned, for balance, which is another word for healing. We have what it takes. And you know, as Connie said earlier, it's crisis that is going to trigger the change. As long as we're complacent, as long as we're comfortable, as long as we've got as much as we need, or we think we need, we are not going to make a change. But so many of us at this point are looking around and saying, whoa, this world has gone in a direction that we don't feel good about. So A, we have to trust, and B, we have to wake up and deploy our intelligence. And we will then make very different choices, the kinds of things you were talking about, Nathan. We live on a little tiny couple of acre organic farm outside of Boulder, Colorado, with friends, and they are taking this kind of action very seriously, living on a property like that, growing their own food, having chickens. Love it. We can't do that. We're on the road. We're in the Trustmobile. It's our Sprinter, Mercedes Sprinter van that gets, 20 miles to the gallon and runs on the cheapest fuel. So we're doing the best we can, but we've got a message. We've got a work to do. Our lifestyle has to, just of necessity, be different. We can't exactly raise our own food in a vehicle on the road. So it's all about trusting the process and knowing that we are loved by a loving universe, and that no matter what it looks like, it is all good.
And I keep referring back to that hippie guy, Wallace Black Elk, one of my great Lakota friends. Always called Jesus that little hippie guy. But think of the loaves and the fishes, that kind of abundance where he fed the multitude with these few loaves and fishes and had bushel baskets of leftovers, okay? See, we're in a scarcity-based thought process. Our economic systems, I have a degree in economics, our economic system is based on the problem of scarcity, okay? So if we believe there is scarcity, and this is at the foundation of the whole environmental movement as well, that we are using up scarce resources, okay? What is in this higher frequency is more abundance than we can fathom. We can't use it up. We can't, it's just more than we can fathom. Once everybody knows that, then nobody has to fight over resources. Nobody has to compete to survive. Everybody can be generous and give things away. We don't, everything changes if there's a more abundance for everybody than anybody can fathom. And I know that's anathema to the current belief system that if we act and live abundantly, we're using up something that's scarce. Okay, so we're very radical in what we're bringing to the table, and it really takes pondering and understanding, and it is what's up. We are moving. The veil is thinning between our understanding of our true nature and the true nature of the universe. So we're getting it, and all these crises and this climate change situation is calling us forth, is triggering us, is pushing us forward into global collaboration and global understanding of each other and working together to a higher place. One thing I'd like to do before we go, and I know we're running out of time, is I'd like to bring forth our 7 A's of consciousness, that we are saying determine our reality, actually determine our frequency, our vibratory level. And each person can have a different reality. We don't all have to be participating at the level of scarcity and all that. because we have the free will to choose and create our own reality, and we would like to give people this 7 A's in one sentence that people can check throughout the day to see where their 7 A's are and what is actually determining their frequency, and expressed in another way are our requests to this conscious, loving universe who loves us so much it gives us everything we ask for. And we have to understand what those requests are. So let me give this 7 A's sentence as sort of our parting gift. Okay? Is that cool, Nathan?
Yeah, absolutely. We have about 2 minutes left, and we have some websites to share. We want to give folks your website as well. So if we can list them quickly, and then we can share your books with folks too who may want to go deeper. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. With expanded awareness and accurate assumptions, we choose our attitude, consciously direct our attention, align with our highest inner knowing, take committed action, and allow the loving universe to manifest beyond our wildest dreams. That's
Beautiful.
It.
Thank you. We've been talking with Connie and Andrew from the Trust Frequency, and it's been a really a wonderful conversation. I thank you both so much, and we have a few websites here to share with everyone listening, so please write these down and take a look at them at your convenience. Connie and Andrew's website is thetrustfrequency.net. You'll also find links to their book at thetrustfrequency.net. Also, if you missed any of the previous interviews during the Earth Day Summit, you can pick them up at earthdaysummit.com/upgrade. There's ownership options there with additional goodies you might enjoy, earthdaysummit.com/upgrade. And finally, through the Panacea community, we're producing a 4-day transformational, sustainability-focused festival in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's September 22nd through the 25th, which is dedicated to unifying humanity and leaving the land better than we found it. There's workshops and yoga, there's keynotes and presentations, there's music, there's entire builds on site, there's art installations. It's a festival environment that's sober and conscious and really about unifying us. So the festival is called Unify Fest, and the website is unifyfest.com. And again, Connie, Andrew, thank you so much. You have much brilliance to share. Thank you for this wonderful work you're doing. I really appreciate you for sharing here with us.
Well, we are honored to be invited. And thank you, Nathan. It's been a treat to be here with you.
And happy Earth Day.
Beautiful. Thank you. And again, thank you all for tuning in and for being a part of our community and for going out and implementing the things you learned during the Earth Day Summit. This is a reminder for each of us to care deeply about this beautiful planet we live on and to make better decisions so that we can truly think about how we want to leave this planet for future generations. So I appreciate you all for being here, and we'll talk to you next time on the Earth Day Summit.
Thank you for joining us for Earth Day Summit 2016, brought to you by the Shift Network. To add this powerful collection of teachings to your personal library, visit earthdaysummit.com/upgrade. To learn more about our global community of people awakening to their divine humanity and taking inspired action, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for joining us to discover the next inspired steps you can take to solve critical problems for Mother Earth and all of her inhabitants, and for sharing this planet-changing information with your friends and family.